Captain Rue pulled himself up from the cold, hard floor. His head hurt badly. He tasted blood in his mouth. The air was full of thick gray dust. It was hard to breathe. He tried to remember what happened. There was a loud noise, a bright light, and then silence. He was in the command bunker of New Jeongju. Now, it was just broken rocks and metal. He coughed and wiped his eyes. He looked around him. The room was destroyed. Screens were black. Wires hung down from the ceiling like dead snakes. He called out, "Hello? Is anyone there?" His voice sounded weak in the quiet dust. A sound came from the corner. A pile of metal moved. A hand reached out. It was Yuna. She was his communications officer. Her face was dirty, and her uniform was torn, but she was alive. Rue ran to her and helped her stand up. She leaned against the wall. "We have to move," Rue said. "The bunker is not safe." They walked carefully through the dark hallway. The lights were flickering. Sparks fell from the broken wires. Every step was heavy. They finally reached a heavy metal door. Rue used all his strength to push it open. The door groaned and fell to the side. They stepped outside. What they saw made them stop. The sky was not blue. It was a swirling mix of black and deep purple. The clouds looked like they were burning. The ground was covered in white ash. The tall buildings of the colony were gone. There were no bodies. There was no metal. There was only dust. It was as if the buildings never existed. What happened? Yuna asked softly. She was shaking. "Where is everyone?" Rue looked at the horizon. He saw silver shapes floating in the sky. They were not human ships. They were perfect, smooth geometrical forms. They were triangles and spheres. They were beautiful but terrifying. They were the enemy. "We were attacked," Rue said, his voice hard. "Come on. We need to get to the emergency shelter." They started to run across the broken ground. The ash was deep, making it hard to walk. The air smelled like ozone and burnt plastic. Rue felt a deep anger in his chest. This colony was home to thousands of people. Families lived here. Children played in the streets. Now, it was a graveyard of dust. They found the entrance to the emergency shelter. It was half buried in rocks. They dug until they found the door. Rue typed the code into the pad. The light was red. The power was out. He hit the panel hard with his fist. He took out a tool from his belt and opened the panel. He crossed the wires. Sparks flew, and the door slid open with a loud screech. Inside, it was dark. Rue turned on his flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness. They moved down the stairs. They found a group of survivors huddled together. There were about 20 people. They looked scared and tired. Some were hurt. A medic named Jisoo was trying to help a man with a broken leg. "Captain," Jisoo said. She looked relieved to see him. "We have been trapped here." The door was jammed. Rue looked at the survivors. "Is the radio working?" Jisoo shook her head. "The main array is destroyed. But I have a portable unit. I can try to get a signal." They went to a small room in the back. Jisoo set up the radio. Yuna sat down to help her. They twisted the knobs. Static filled the air. Hissing and crackling noises. They listened for hours. It felt like days. Finally, a voice broke through. "Mayday. This is Outpost 4. They are dissolving us. The shields do not work. Help us." Then the voice turned to screams. The sound cut off. Silence returned. Yuna looked at Rue with fear in her eyes. "They are gone. All the outposts are gone." Rue paced the small room. "Who are they? Why are they doing this?" Just then, the radio changed. A new signal came in. It was strong and clear, but it was not a human voice. It sounded cold and flat. It had no feeling. Attention biological units. This is the Vok Empire. Your presence has been identified as a contamination. Your structures are an offense to the purity of this sector. Sterilization is mandatory. Do not resist. Return to the dust. The message repeated over and over again. Sterilization is mandatory. Rue grabbed the radio. They don't want to conquer us. They want to erase us. They see us like germs. They are cleaning the galaxy. They are going to come here, Jisoo said. To the shelter? No, Rue said. They don't need to come here. They will just turn the whole planet into dust like they did the city. We cannot stay. We have no ship, Yuna said. Everything is destroyed. Not everything, Rue said. I know a place. Before the attack, we were testing a new prototype ship. It was hidden in the old mines near the mountains. It was called the Aegis. It has a hyperdrive. It was meant for deep space exploration. But it can fly. Can we make it there? Jisoo asked. The silver ships are everywhere. We have to try, Rue said. Staying here is death. We need to warn Earth. If they did this here, they will do it to Earth next. The group gathered their supplies. They took water, medical kits, and weapons. They looked like ghosts in the dust. They moved out of the shelter. The purple sky was getting darker. The silver ships in the sky were moving. They were firing beams of light down at the surface. Where the beams hit, the ground turned to nothing. They moved fast. They stayed in the shadows of the destroyed rocks. Rue led the way. He held his rifle ready. They had to cross an open plain to get to the mountains. It was dangerous. Suddenly, a loud humming sound came from above. A small silver drone appeared. It hovered over them. A red light scanned the ground. Run! Rue shouted. They sprinted across the plain. The drone fired a beam. It missed Yuna by inches. The heat was intense. Rue stopped and turned around. He aimed his rifle at the drone. He fired. The bullets hit the drone, but they just bounced off. It had a shield. Keep going, Rue yelled to the others. I will distract it. He fired again, drawing the drone's attention. The drone turned toward him. Rue ran behind a large rock formation. The beam hit the rock, turning the front into liquid. Rue rolled to the side. He took a grenade from his belt. He pulled the pin. He waited for the drone to come close. He threw the grenade. It exploded right under the drone. The shield flared bright blue and then shattered. The explosion tore the drone into pieces. Rue did not wait. He ran to catch up with the others. They reached the entrance to the old mines. It was a dark hole in the side of a mountain. They ran inside, away from the deadly sky. The air inside was cool and stale. They turned on their flashlights. The beams of light danced on the stone walls. They walked deep into the mine. For an hour, they climbed down tunnels and ladders. Finally, they reached a large underground cavern. There, sitting in the middle, was the Aegis Dot. It was a beautiful ship. It was sleek and white, with blue lines running along its hull. It was small, but it looked fast. It was hidden under a camouflage net. Rue pulled the net away. This is it, Rue said. This is our only chance. They ran up the ramp into the ship. Rue and Yuna went to the cockpit. The others found seats in the back. Rue sat in the pilot's chair. His hand shook a little as he touched the controls. He started the engine. The ship hummed to life. Lights came on all over the dashboard. Power is at 100%, Yuna said. Shields are up. Life support is online. Rue keyed in the launch sequence. The roof of the cavern opened. It moved slowly, revealing the dark sky again. Hold on, Rue warned. The Aegis lifted off. It shot out of the mountain like a bullet. Rue pushed the throttle to maximum. The ship roared upward. They entered the atmosphere. The G-force pressed them into their seats. They broke through the clouds. Rue looked at the screen. Space was full of the silver Vox ships. They were blocking the way. "We are trapped," Una said. "No," Rue said. "I see a gap. Near the moon. I am going to engage the hyperdrive. But we have to be far enough away first." He flew the ship wildly. He dodged debris and energy beams. The Aegis was fast and agile. It rolled and dived. A large beam passed right next to them. "Shields holding at 80%, Una said. Why you saw the gap. It was narrow, but it was there. He aimed the ship toward it. The silver ships tried to intercept him, but they were too slow. The Aegis flew through the gap as they left the atmosphere. Rue looked back at the colony. New Jeongju was gone. The planet was turning brown and gray. The Vox ships were finishing their work. "They are not just destroying the cities," Rue said quietly. "They are killing the planet." "We are clear of the gravity well," Una said. "Hyperdrive is ready." Rue looked at the stars in front of him. Earth was far away, but it was the only hope. "Engage hyperdrive. Take us home." The stars stretched into lines of light. The Aegis disappeared into the void, leaving the burning colony behind. They were the only survivors, and they carried a warning that would change everything. The stars snapped back into normal points of light as the Aegis dropped out of hyperspace. The silence inside the ship was heavy. Rue sat in the pilot's seat, his hands gripping the controls until his knuckles turned white. He had not slept since they left New Jeongju. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the purple sky and the dissolving buildings. Una sat next to him, watching the radar screen. She looked pale and tired, but her eyes were focused. In the back of the ship, the survivors were sleeping or trying to sleep. Jizu was quietly checking on the wounded man again. "Approaching the Sol system," Una said softly. Her voice broke the quiet. "We are home." Rue nodded slowly. "Send the emergency code. Priority Alpha. Tell them we are the only survivors. Tell them what is coming." Una typed on the keyboard. She sent the message over and over again. They waited. Space is big, and radio waves take time to travel. Eve. And with advanced technology. For a long time, there was only static. Then, a voice answered. It was crisp and military, belonging to the Earth Defense Coalition. "Unidentified vessel. This is Earth Control. State your identification and purpose." "This is Captain Rue of the Colonial Defense Force. I am commanding the prototype ship Aegis. We are fleeing an attack on New Jeongju. The colony is destroyed. I repeat, the colony is destroyed." There was a pause on the line. "Captain Rue, please confirm. Destroyed." "Confirmed," Rue said, his voice shaking slightly. "An alien force called the Vox. They used molecular weapons. They erased the colony. They are coming for Earth. You must prepare." The voice changed. It became deeper and more serious. "Captain Rue, you are ordered to land at Sector 4 in the American desert. Admiral Cho is waiting for you. Do not enter Earth orbit directly. We are scanning for threats." "Understood," Rue said. He turned the ship toward the blue and white planet that hung in the darkness. It looked so peaceful. It was hard to believe that such a terrible thing could threaten it. But Rue knew the truth. The peace was an illusion. The Aegis flew down through the atmosphere. The sky turned from black to blue. The sun shone brightly on the vast desert below. Rue could see the base from the air. It was a large, flat area surrounded by high walls and guarded by tanks and soldiers. He landed the ship gently on the landing pad. The ramp lowered, and the cool desert air rushed inside. Rue walked down the ramp first. He was followed by Yuna and Jisoo. The survivors needed help, so medics rushed past them to get to the ship. Rue stood on the tarmac, blinking in the bright sunlight. A group of officers walked toward them. The leader was a tall woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. It was Admiral Cho. She looked tough, like she had seen many battles. "Captain Rue," she said. She did not smile. She shook his hand firmly. "I received your data. The situation is grave. The situation is hopeless if we do not act," Rue said quickly. "They don't just kill. They erase. They view us as dirt. You cannot negotiate with them." Admiral Cho led them into a large building. They walked down long, clean hallways. They entered a conference room where a large holographic map of the solar system sat in the middle of the table. Other generals and scientists were there. They looked nervous. "We have analyzed the data you brought," Cho said. "This enemy, the Valk, their technology is far beyond ours. Their ships are faster, and their shields are stronger. If they come here with a full fleet, we cannot win a direct fight. So we run?" Rue asked angrily. "We leave Earth?" "We do not run," Cho said sternly. "We have been preparing for a threat like this for a long time. There is a project I have kept secret. It is called the Solar Anvil." She pressed a button on the table. The hologram changed. It showed a network of satellites around Earth. They were large and heavily armored. There were also ground bases in the American wilderness and other remote areas. "What is it?" Yuna asked. "It is a shield," Cho explained. "But not a normal one. It uses quantum physics to create a barrier around the planet. It is very difficult to maintain, but it can deflect almost any energy attack. It is our only hope to survive the first strike." Meanwhile, far away on the edge of the solar system, a massive fleet dropped out of hyperspace. There were hundreds of ships. They were silver, smooth, and beautiful. They moved in perfect formation, like a school of fish in the ocean. The flagship was the largest. It was called the Purifier. Inside, the bridge was silent. The air was cool and smelled like clean metal. There were no chairs for the crew. The Vox stood in their places, connected to the ship by neural links. They were tall, thin creatures with silver skin and large black eyes. They wore no uniforms, only simple robes. They did not speak to each other. They communicated with their minds. High Commander Xylus stood at the front of the bridge. He looked at the holographic display of the Sol system. He saw the yellow sun and the small blue planet. He felt a wave of disgust. To him, the humans were a virus. The planet Earth was a dirty rock that needed to be cleaned. The biological infestation is located on the third planet, Xylus thought. His thoughts were sent to the entire fleet. "Prepare the sterilization sequence. We will cleanse this system. There will be no mercy. There will be no survivors." He looked at the data from the attack on New Jeongju. It had been a success. The colony was gone in less than an hour. He expected Earth to be just as easy. The humans had primitive weapons. They used explosive rockets and solid metal bullets. They were like children throwing stones at a tank. He did not fear them. He did not even respect them. "We are receiving a transmission from the planet," a crew member thought to Xylus. "It is a warning. They tell us to leave or face destruction." Xylus made a sound that was like a laugh, but it was cold and sharp. "Destruction? They are primitive. They do not know what destruction is. Ignore them. Move the fleet forward. Target their major cities. We will begin the incineration immediately." The Vok fleet began a move. It was a slow, unstoppable wave of silver. They passed the outer planets. They ignored Jupiter and Saturn. They had eyes only for Earth. They did not send a message of surrender. They did not demand resources. They only came to kill. Back on Earth, alarms started to blare. The lights in the command center turned red. Ru, Yuna, and Admiral Cho watched the main screen. They saw the blips representing the Vox ships entering the system. There were so many of them. "They are here," Ru said. He felt a chill go down his spine. He remembered the fear he felt in the bunker. "Activate the solar anvil," Cho ordered. Her voice was calm, but her hand gripped the edge of the table. On the screen, the satellites around Earth began to power up. They glowed with a faint blue light. The ground bases also started to hum with energy. A shimmering barrier started to form around the blue planet. It was faint at first, like a mirage, but it grew stronger. The air above the atmosphere seemed to ripple. The Vox fleet stopped. They were surprised by the shield. Xylus looked at the readings. "They have a defensive grid?" He thought with surprise. "It is unexpected, but it will not save them. Our weapons are the will of the universe. Fire the main beam. Break the shell." One of the massive Vox ships moved to the front. It opened a large cannon. A beam of pure white energy shot out. It traveled across space, moving faster than the eye could follow. It hit the shield around Earth. There was a massive flash of light. The shield glowed bright red where the beam hit. The energy tried to push through, but the shield held. The beam was deflected, bouncing off into space.r while Yu let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. "It held," he said. "The shield held. They will try again," Cho said. "And they will try harder. This is just the beginning." Xylus was not pleased. He felt a small spark of annoyance. These insects were not dying as fast as he planned. He did not like when things were not clean. "Concentrate fire on one sector," he ordered the fleet. "Overload their capacitors. We will break them." "Admiral," Yuna said, looking at the screen. "They are changing formation. They are aiming all their weapons at the North Atlantic. If they break the shield there, the ocean will boil." "Divert power to the north sector," Cho commanded. "And get the fleet ready. We cannot stay behind the shield forever." Ru watched the screen. The alien ships were so beautiful, but they were so deadly. He knew that the shield could not last forever. It was only a matter of time. He looked at the faces of the people in the room. They were afraid, but they were ready to fight. They were humans. They did not give up easily, even when the odds were bad. "They think we are nothing," Ru said quietly. "They think they can just erase us like chalk on a board. They are wrong. We will make them pay for New Jiangju." The sky above the moon turned from black to a blinding bright orange. The Vox fleet moved forward like a swarm of angry silver bees. They did not care about the small human bases on the lunar surface. To them, the moon was just a rock in the way. Their target was the blue and green planet hanging in the distance. On the moon's surface, at the Apollo base, the alarm sirens were screaming. Lieutenant Kim ran to his fighter ship. He was a young pilot, but he had trained for this day his whole life. He wore a pressure suit and carried a helmet under his arm. The ground shook as Vox beams struck the lunar dust nearby. "This is Red Leader to all squadrons," Kim shouted into his comms unit. "We are launching. Do not let them reach Earth. We have to buy time for the shield." He jumped into the cockpit of his starfighter. It was a small, fast ship with thrusters on the wings. He strapped himself in and pulled the helmet over his head. The display screens lit up around him. He could see the shapes of the Vox ships. They were huge. "Engine start," Kim yelled. He pushed the throttle forward. His ship lifted off the landing pad. Behind him, hundreds of other ships followed. They were a mix of interceptors and bombers. It was a beautiful sight, seeing them rise into the dark sky together. They flew toward the alien fleet. The distance closed quickly. On the radar screen, Kim saw red lights everywhere. Fire at will. The command center ordered. The human ships released a cloud of missiles. The missiles trailed white smoke as they sped toward the enemy. Kim watched with hope. He hoped the missiles would break the silver ships. But when the missiles hit, nothing happened. The Vox ships had a faint blue glow around them. The missiles exploded against the glow, but the ships underneath W are not damaged. Their shields are too strong. A pilot named June shouted over the radio. Our weapons aren't working. Don't stop. Kim yelled back. We have to keep them busy. The Vox fleet responded. They did not fire many guns. Instead, they used precise beams of light. A blue beam flashed past Kim's ship. It hit June's ship directly. There was no explosion. June's ship simply dissolved. It turned into gas and dust in a second. June! Kim screamed. He banked his ship hard to the left. He rolled to avoid another beam. The battle turned into a massacre. The human fighters were fast and agile, but they were made of metal and plastic. The Vox weapons were made to erase matter. Every time a blue beam touched a human ship, the ship vanished. The Vox did not miss often. We can't win this? A voice cried out. We don't have to win, Kim said through gritted teeth. We just have to hold. He saw a large Vox ship charging a main weapon. It was aiming at the Earth. The weapon glowed brighter and brighter. He's firing on the planet. Kim shouted. All units, focus fire on that cannon. We have to stop it. Kim flew his ship straight at the massive Vox vessel. He ignored the small beams flying around him. He fired his guns, peppering the silver hull, but the bullets did nothing. Other pilots joined him. They flew like a swarm of hornets, trying to sting a bear. The Vox ship fired. A massive white beam shot out toward Earth. On Earth, in the command center, everyone held their breath. Admiral Cho watched the main screen. The beam crossed the distance between the moon and the Earth in seconds. It hit the shield over the Atlantic Ocean. A blinding flash filled the screen. The shield glowed with an intense violet light. The ground shook as the energy impacted the barrier. The beam tried to push through, but the shield held. The energy was deflected, bouncing off into space. The water below boiled, and the clouds swirled, but the land was safe. The shield held. Yuna yelled. It worked. But on the moon, the situation was bad. Less than half of the human fighters were left. Kim's ship was damaged. His left engine was smoking. Red Leader, this is command, the radio said. You have done enough. Retreat to the Earth. Go inside the shield. We can't leave, sir, Kim said. They will just follow us. That is an order, Lieutenant. Get out of there. Kim looked at his radar. Only a few dots of his friends remained. He felt a deep sadness in his chest. He turned his ship around. All remaining units, form up on me. We are going home. The few surviving ships turned and ran toward the blue planet. The Vox ships did not chase them aggressively. They let them go. It was like the Vox knew the humans could not escape. Kim flew through the atmosphere. His ship was hot. The friction of the air made the hull glow red. He landed hard on a runway in the American desert. He got out of the cockpit and fell to his knees. He took off his helmet and breathed the fresh air. He was alive, but he felt like he had failed. Meanwhile, in space, the Vox fleet changed their strategy. High Commander Xylus was annoyed. The shield was a problem, but he knew how to solve it. Energy shields had limits. They needed power. If you hit them with enough energy, they would break. Or you could hit them with something physical. Prepare the kinetic rods, Xylus commanded his fleet. The Vox ships stopped firing energy beams. Instead, they launched thousands of long, thin metal rods. They were simple weapons, just heavy metal moving very fast. They were aimed at the shield all over the planet. On Earth, The radar operators saw the attack coming. Incoming objects. Yuna shouted. Thousands of them. They are not energy beams. They are solid projectiles. Brace for impact. Admiral Cho yelled. The rods hit the shield. It was like a rain of hail on a tin roof. The shield flashed and sparked everywhere. The energy of the shield was being pushed to its limit. The rods did not dissolve. They smashed against the barrier. The physical pressure was immense. In cities all over the world, people looked up. They could see the shimmering shield in the sky. It was turning from blue to bright red. Thunder rumbled constantly, even though there were no clouds. The vibration from the impacts shook the ground. The generators are overheating. A technician shouted. We cannot sustain this level of power. Divert power from the civilian grid. Cho ordered. Shut down the cities if you have to. We need every joule for the shield. In the ruins of New Jeongju, on the other side of the galaxy, the planet was quiet. The Vok had finished their work. The planet was a dead ball of dust. But here, Earth was fighting. Inside the underground bunker of the Solar Anvil Project, Ru and Yuna were watching the power levels. The generators were huge machines, spinning faster than ever. Ru, Yuna said quietly, look at the data. The shield is absorbing the energy of the kinetic impacts. It is not just blocking them. It is feeding the energy back into the grid. Ru looked at the numbers. She was right. The more the Vok hit the shield, the more power the shield collected. The system was designed to take punishment and use it. The solar anvil, Ru whispered. It isn't just a shield, is it? Cho walked into the room. She looked tired but determined. No, Captain. It is a trap. We are charging the battery. We need them to hit us. We need them to hit us as hard as they can. We need their energy. Outside, the sky was a storm of fire. The kinetic rods kept falling. The shield cracked in some places, letting small pieces of debris through. Some buildings were damaged, and fires started in forests. But the planet held. The Vok fleet continued to fire. They thought they were wearing the humans down. They did not know that every blow brought them closer to their doom. The arrogance of the Vok blinded them. They thought Earth was a victim. They did not realize that Earth was a trap. The humans were not hiding behind the shield in fear. They were waiting for the right moment to strike back. The sky above Earth was a terrifying canvas of fire and light. The Vok fleet continued to rain down kinetic rods from space. Millions of metal spikes struck the planetary shield. The sound was deafening, like the entire planet was screaming. The shield glowed with a deep, angry red color. It flickered in some places, threatening to shatter. Inside the underground command center, the air was hot and smelled of burning electrical wires. Alarms were constant. Technicians ran from one screen to another, shouting commands and checking readings. Ru stood near the main holographic table, watching the red dots of the enemy fleet. They were relentless. Report on the shield status. Admiral Cho shouted over the noise of the sirens. Shield integrity is at 40%, a technician answered, his voice shaking with fear. The generators are overheating. If we keep taking this punishment, the system will collapse in 30 minutes. Ru looked at Cho. They are trying to break us. They think we are just hiding. They are arrogant, Cho said calmly, though her eyes were tired. And that is their mistake. She turned to Ru and Yuna. It is time. Follow me. They left the main control room and walked down a long, heavily reinforced corridor. At the end was a massive blast door. Cho placed her hand on a scanner. The door slid open with a heavy thud. Inside was a smaller, darker room. In the center stood a large console with a single lever and a complex targeting screen. This is the heart of the solar anvil, Cho explained. She pointed to the screen. It showed a live feed of the sun. The shield has been doing two things, she continued. Protecting us and absorbing the energy of the Vok attacks. We've been diverting that massive amount of energy into a capacitor bank buried deep within the Earth. What are you going to do with it? Ru asked. Shoot it back at them? No, Cho said. We do not have a weapon powerful enough to destroy their entire fleet. Even with all this energy, we cannot punch through their shields from here. Yuna looked at the screen, confused. Then what is the point? Cho walked to the window. She looked up at the sky, even though she couldn't see the sun from underground. We are going to use the biggest weapon in the solar system. The sun itself. Ru stared at her. The sun? You can't just shoot the sun. We are not going to shoot it, Cho corrected him. We are going to poke it. She typed a command into the console. A schematic appeared on the screen. It showed a network of satellites orbiting close to the sun. They were small and disguised as space junk. We have placed a series of relay mirrors and magnetic amplifiers around the sun, Cho explained. For years, we have been studying solar flares. We learned that if we hit a specific unstable spot on the sun's surface with a massive, focused burst of energy, we can trigger a solar flare. A coronal mass ejection. She paused to let the information sink in. A flare of that magnitude would send a wave of plasma and electromagnetic radiation directly at the Vok fleet. Ru began to understand. The Vok shields, they are designed to block matter and laser weapons. What about a solar storm? Exactly, Cho said. A solar flare is raw, chaotic energy. It interferes with electronics, disrupts magnetic fields, and fries circuits. Their ships are highly advanced. They rely on delicate quantum computers. A solar flare at this range would not destroy their ships physically, but it would burn out their brains. It would leave them dead in space. But, Yuna said, a wave like that would hit Earth too. Cho nodded grimly. Yes, the flare will pass through our entire system. Our magnetosphere will protect the surface, but it will be rough. Satellites will be wiped out. Power grids will fail. But we will survive. The Vok will not. Suddenly, the ground shook violently. Dust fell from the ceiling. They are ink. Raising the fire. A voice came over the intercom. The shield is at 30%. We have no time to waste, Cho said. She looked at Ru. Captain, I need you to authorize this. You are the ranking survivor of the colonies. This is revenge for your people. Ru looked at the lever. It was a simple piece of metal, but it held the weight of billions of lives. If this failed, Earth would burn. If it worked, they would survive. Do it, Ru said. Cho grabbed the handle. Initializing sequence. Locking onto the sunspot. Transferring energy from the shield capacitors to the relay array. On the screen, they saw the energy bar rise. The power they had stolen from the Vok attacks was now flowing out of Earth. It shot upward, invisible to the eye, racing toward the small satellites near the sun. Outside, the planetary shield flickered and dimmed. The Vok saw this. High Commander Xylus watched from his bridge. He saw the shield weakening. They are collapsing, Xylus thought, satisfied. Prepare the final wave. We will incinerate the surface. But down on Earth, the final stage of the plan was ready. Firing, Cho whispered. She pushed the lever down. In space. Nothing seemed to happen at first. Then, near the sun, the satellites activated. They focused a beam of pure energy onto a dark spot on the sun's surface. It was like striking a match in a room full of gas. The sun roared. A massive loop of fire erupted from the surface. It grew larger and larger, spinning out into the void. It was a storm of fire and electricity, a monster of cosmic proportions. The flare aimed itself outward, guided by the magnetic field. directly toward the inner solar system. It was a wall of destruction moving at millions of miles an hour. While you watched the monitor, the flare was beautiful and terrifying. "It's on its way," Yuna whispered. "It will reach them in 10 minutes. "We have to evacuate the control room," Cho ordered. "The electromagnetic pulse is going to hit us soon. We need to go deep underground to the shielded bunkers." They ran out of the room. The complex was in chaos. Everyone was rushing to the elevators that led to the deepest levels. Ru made sure Yuna and Jisoo were inside before he got in. The doors closed, and they began their descent. Up in space, the Vok fleet did not run. They did not understand what was happening. They saw the bright light on the sun, but their sensors could not predict the intensity of the wave coming toward them. They were too confident. They thought their shields could handle anything. Zealous watched the wave approach. "What is that disturbance?" he asked. "Solar flare," a crew member replied. "It is highly energetic." "Shall we raise shields to maximum?" "Unnecessary," Xylus said. "It's just a solar wind. Our shields can withstand radiation." But this was not just radiation. It was a weaponized star. The wave hit the outer Vok ships first. There was no explosion. There was no flash of laser light. Instead, the ships just stopped working. Their lights went out. Their engines died. The delicate quantum computers inside them melted in an instant. The ships turned into cold, dead metal, drifting in the void. The wave kept coming. It washed over the entire fleet. Hundreds of ships were disabled in seconds. The purifier itself was hit. The lights on the bridge flickered and died. The hum of the engine stopped. Silas stood in the darkness. For the first time, he felt fear. He was cold. He was cut off from his ship. He was helpless in the deep bunker on Earth. The lights went out. The hum of the air conditioners stopped. Total darkness surrounded them. Then, emergency red lights clicked on. It was silent. Did it work? Jisoo asked in the dark. "We are alive," Ru said. "That means the flare passed us." The magnetosphere held. Cho turned on a small battery-powered radio. She adjusted the dial. Static filled the air. Then, a weak voice came through. "This is Lunar Command. We are reading massive power failures in the enemy fleet. All Vok ships are drifting. They are dead in the water." Ru let out a breath he had been holding for what felt like a lifetime. It worked. The trap was sprung. The hunter had become the hunted. The Earth was still standing, and the great Vok Empire was broken. The silence that followed was heavier than the noise of the battle. In the deep underground bunker, nobody moved for a long time. The emergency red lights cast long, strange shadows on the walls. The air conditioning was off, and the room was getting stuffy. Everyone was staring at the large main screen. For a moment, the screen was just static snow, fuzzing gray and white. Then, the backup systems kicked in. The picture cleared. What they saw made them gasp. The Vok fleet was still there, hovering over the Earth, but it was changed. The bright, pulsing blue lights that protected the ships were gone. The sleek silver hulls, which usually glowed with energy, were now dark and cold. The massive geometric shapes looked like tombstones floating in the void. "Sensors are coming back online," a technician said quietly. "I am reading no energy signatures from the enemy fleet. None. Their engines are offline. Their shields are down. Their weapons are inactive. Are they dead?" Ru asked, stepping closer to the screen. "They are not dead," Admiral Cho said, her voice grim but satisfied. "They are disabled. The solar flare burned out their electronics. Their ships are just metal shells now. They are floating blind." On the bridge of the purifier, High Commander Xylus stood frozen. The darkness was absolute. The neural link that connected him to the ship was severed. For a Vok, being cut off from the network was like being trapped in a coffin. He felt small and helpless. He looked out the viewport, but the blast shields were down because the power failed. He could not see the stars or the planet that he tried to destroy. He only felt the coldness of the metal around him. For the first time in his long life, he did not know what would happen next. Back on Earth, the mood in the bunker shifted from fear to action. The scientists and soldiers realized they had won. They had survived the impossible. True, they had survived the impossible. We need to secure the perimeter, Cho ordered. Get me General Park. Tell him to scramble the remaining squadrons. The Vok cannot shoot back, but we do not know if they have emergency systems. I want to go up there, Rue said suddenly. He looked at Cho. I want to see it. I want to see them broken. Cho nodded. Go. Take Yuna and Lieutenant Kim. Take the Aegis. The solar flare has passed, but there is still a lot of radiation in the upper atmosphere. Be careful. Okay. Rue, Yuna, and Kim ran to the elevator. They rode it up to the surface. When they stepped out of the bunker, the first thing they noticed was the sky. It was not blue. It was a swirling canvas of red, green, and purple lights. The aurora borealis was visible everywhere, even in the daytime. It was beautiful, caused by the storm that had just saved them. They ran to the waiting Aegis. The ship had some minor damage from the EMP, but the technicians had fixed the critical systems. Rue strapped into the pilot's seat. His hands were steady now. He felt a sense of calm purpose. Engine start, Rue said. The ship roared to life. They lifted off and flew straight up into the sky. As they broke through the clouds, the sight took their breath away. The earth was beautiful, a blue gem shining in the dark. But above it hung the Vok fleet. Hundreds of massive ships were silent. They looked like ghosts. Debris from their destroyed fighters floated around them like dust. It's over, Yuna whispered. Look at them. They are huge, but they are helpless. We did this, Kim said, sounding amazed. We used the sun. Rue flew the ship closer to the purifier. It was the size of a city. Now, it was just drifting. Suddenly, a signal came in on the radio. It was weak. This is I Commander Xylus of the Vok Empire. We request communication. Rue looked at Yuna. She shrugged. Rue pressed the button. This is Captain Rue of Earth. You tried to destroy us. You have no right to ask for anything. The alien voice sounded different now. It was not arrogant. It was trembling. We are stranded. Our systems. Air destroyed. We cannot navigate. We cannot breathe our air for long without power. We are dying. We surrender. Spare us. Rue thought about the colony of New Jongju. He thought about the dust that used to be a city. He thought about the people who were erased from existence. Surrender? Rue said. You didn't offer surrender to the colonies. You just erased them. It was the order, the voice said. We are superior. We thought. We were wrong. Rue looked at the massive ship. He could destroy it right now. He could fire his missiles and blow them into pieces. But he looked down at the earth below. They had fought to save life, not to take it. You will surrender, Rue said. You will power down your emergency systems. You will wait for our forces to board you. If you resist, we will leave you to float in the dark until you starve. Do you understand? We understand, the voice replied. The Aegis turned away and flew back toward the base. Rue landed the ship gently. As he walked down the ramp, the sun was beginning to set. The sky was clearing. The auroras were fading. The air felt fresh. A week later, things were different. The Vok fleet had been towed to a stable orbit between Earth and the Moon. The aliens were prisoners. They were confused and scared. For a species that thought they were gods, being prisoners of humans was a shock. Rue stood on a tall building in New York City. He was wearing his dress uniform. Yuna and Kim stood next to him. Admiral Cho was giving a speech on a large screen in the square. The city was rebuilding. There was damage from the falling debris, but the people were happy. They were alive. "We faced extinction," Cho said from the screen. "We faced an enemy that saw,